Welcome back to the AI Daily Brief. Over the weekend, I saw an interesting conversation emerge around effectively whether it's too late to start building some sort of vertical AI startup going after a particular industry. I actually think it's a really useful lens by which to understand where we are in the enterprise cycle as relates to AI. And so I want to talk through this a little bit more in depth, bringing into it some of the conversations that we're having over at Superintelligent. Our main customer base at Superintelligent is individuals and enterprise customers who are thinking about how to use AI in their particular professional verticals. So we have a lot of reps just with this particular conversation. Now, where this started was with this provocative tweet from @EmilyNVC, where she wrote, calling it now, Harvey, the legal AI company, will end up being roadkill on the side of the highway. Complete smoke and mirrors company. More precisely, it's a zero. Likes aren't public, but y'all would be floored by the people who are liking this tweet. Some of the top founders and investors in the Valley. This is the company she's referring to. Harvey, which frames itself as the trusted legal AI platform. Augment your workflows using domain-specific models trained by and for professional service providers. In another article by Edward Buxtell, some of Harvey's history was given. OpenAI invested in the company the same month that it launched ChatGPT, which, as Buxtell says, means that Harvey arguably had a 3 to 6 month head start on virtually all of its competitors in legal technology. The company was literally working with ChatGPT 3.5 before any other generative AI products in legal. There's no question that Harvey could have come out of the gate with a go-to-market strategy that could have easily captured the imagination of legal early adopters across the spectrum of specializations. Harvey, with its massive first-mover advantage, could have set the standard for legal LLMs while creating the workflows for ethical use and manage the hallucination issue. Now, the rest of the article is a bit skeptical, but I'm more interested in why there is skepticism here than in trying to validate it or not, as I've spent no time with Harvey and have no real sense of how the company is actually doing. Two reference points that I think are interesting. The first is a comparison to Bloomberg GPT. For those of you who don't remember, Bloomberg GPT was a specially trained finance LLM that took advantage of all of Bloomberg's data, and basically Bloomberg had bet that with their specialized data, they'd be able to outperform a generalist model. However, when GPT-4 came out, which of course did not have any specialized finance training, it still beat it on basically every finance tasks. Wrote Professor Ethan Mollick back then, it is part of a pattern. The smartest generalist frontier models beat specialized models in specialized topics. Your special proprietary data may be less useful than you think in the world of LLMs. Again, I don't know if Harvey is experiencing any sort of version of this. They claim that their custom-trained models are preferred 97% of the time by clients. But I do think that right now with any verticalized models, this is a really important question to watch. It's one that different people are going to disagree on and will have a huge impact on how vertical industry-oriented LLMs function or not in the future. The other thing, though, that I want to point out is that Emily followed up her own tweet with a screenshot from a big law partner that uses quote-unquote Harvey from her DMs. That law partner said, Harvey has an insane amount of inactive quote-unquote customers that will churn. Big law firms that want to tell clients they use AI sign-up and then no one uses it. Now, this is sort of presented in the context of this conversation as a big gotcha, like Harvey is tricking people in some way. And of course, this is just an anonymous source in the DMs. But even if this is accurate, I don't think it necessarily means what it's being presented to mean here, i.e. that Harvey is just a smoke and mirrors company. There is a huge gap right now. It's the gap that we spend literally all day in every day between the interest and excitement and intention to use AI to get value and the actual capacity to do so. There are a litany of reasons why that gap exists. Yes, one piece of it may be this sort of AI theater that this big law partner is arguing is happening, where big law firms just want to tell clients they use AI, even though they don't. But there are other much less pernicious issues as well. There's a capacity issue in helping people actually learn these tools. And then there's also the difficult, slow process of industries taking the time to figure out what parts of their process these tools actually help with. Now, Bruno Koba took this conversation and brought it up a level from the specifics of Harvey in the legal industry to vertical AI startups in general. Bruno is an MBA candidate at Stanford and writes, I've been investigating vertical AI startups profoundly for the past few weeks. I think we're in a very strange part of the cycle in AI startup funding and development. Literally every vertical, finance, law, healthcare, etc., is now populated with AI startups building on top of foundation models. If you start today, it's too late to get first mover advantage. 2. However, foundation models are still not quite there yet to solve problems in those verticals in a tangible, bulletproof way. Those who build GPT wrappers, even if they refuse to admit the label, rely on OpenAI's next big model to truly prove sticky long-term retention. And those who decide to train their own specialized models like Harvey are apparently not outperforming smart general models GPT-4o, Claude 3.5 Sonnet. 3, startups are facing a massive dependence on big AI labs shipping the next big model. And once that happens, it might just be that we won't need GPT wrappers at all. ChatGPT will be enough for whatever task we hand them. 4, this is fundamentally so different from the internet and mobile innovation cycles. Back then, incumbents could not touch every single vertical with their product offerings, so startups filled the void and became multi-billion-dollar companies. E.g., Apple launched the App Store, but wouldn't build apps for food delivery, dating, ride-sharing, etc. Now, when GPT-5 launches, OpenAI can touch virtually every industry they want. 5, my sentiment is that we're living in a kind of born too late to explore the Earth, born too early to explore space vibe in this 23-24 cycle in the realm of AI startups. And when the rocket ships to space are finally ready, i.e. truly smart general LLMs, vertical AI startups will capture much less value versus incumbents when compared to previous cycles. I think here it's worth narrowing the parameters of the conversation, or at least breaking it apart between, on the one hand, the question of AI startups in general, and on the other, the specifics of verticalized LLMs. As I mentioned before, there is this big question around whether specially trained or fine-tuned vertical models can ever actually outcompete the generalist state of the art. And Bruno is absolutely right that the answer to that question will have a significant impact on how AI rolls out across industries. Gary Tan, the president and CEO at Y Combinator, however, isn't so sure. He writes, "I don't think it's too late to enter almost any software market with an LLM-powered alternative if you want to. We are seeing tiny teams of a few people build valuable software leapfrogging incumbents with even today's frontier models. The war will be retention. Who can serve your vertical better?" I responded to Gary's post, which was of course the inspiration for this full episode, and said, "We talk to hundreds of enterprise customers for these startups every week. There's no universe in which the game is won right now. In fact, if anything, enterprises are getting more sophisticated about wanting a combination of powerful enough AI with real product UI and UX. And that's why I wanted to separate the intrinsic question inside Bruno's tweet around the ultimate role for custom-trained verticalized LLM models from the question more broadly of whether the big labs are just going to eat all of the enterprise business. The era that we are in right now is a use case exploration era. It is an experimentation era that is happening both vertically inside the organization, i.e. these big custom models that take advantage of all their data, but it's also happening horizontally, where, for example, individuals across those law firms are experimenting and figuring out which use cases actually save them time and make things easier or better. Part of the opportunity, I believe, is for companies to come in and actually design product experiences around LLMs that interact positively with those high-value use cases as they get discovered. In other words, I tend to think that for products to be sticky inside these companies, they're going to have to actually be products. They can't just be ChatGPT, but for legal. Now, one thing that I will also note, where Bruno writes, this is fundamentally so different from the internet and mobile. Back then, incumbents could not touch every single vertical with their product offerings. Sort of. But social really challenges that idea. When I moved to San Francisco in 2008, it was specifically to help Change.org compete in the social network for social good space. It was a time when, 4 years after Facebook had been launched, pretty much everyone was convinced that there was going to be a Facebook for everything. There was going to be a Facebook for social change. There was going to be a Facebook for, you name it. Pick your industry vertical, there was going to be a Facebook for that. There were so many social networks for social change at that time that there was even an aggregator platform called Social Actions, which took inputs from all 40 of those platforms and allowed you to do it from a single spot. Now, of course, at the end of the day, there wasn't a place for a social network for social change. The social network for social change, just like the social network for everything else, was just Meta. The things that came later, that were also social networks, had fundamentally different type of content experiences at their core. Instagram with mobile and photos, Snapchat with mobile and disappearing messages, etc., etc., etc. And yet still, the ecosystem around all of those social channels is huge. So I'm not sure. What I do know is that for aspiring entrepreneurs out there in the AI space interested in particular verticals, our read from all our conversations is that there is still a ton of space, and that the only thing that is clear at this stage is that enterprises want partners who can actually help them take advantage of AI to drive real value. If you think you have a good answer for that, I tend to think that there's more of a market than many might think. For now, though, that is going to do it for today's AI Daily Brief. Until next time, peace.